VJ Burns, and I'm going to do a short kickoff. Later on, Robert Shepherd is going to introduce the Eduverse organization and the speakers of today, and David van Gent from IBM will close off this day. And in between, we've got lots of exciting speakers, demonstrations, and discussions, I hope. Again, welcome all. Looking at you, I see a relatively young crowd. Are you? Who is still a student? Okay. So that's about. Yeah, you're a student of life. No hope for you. And who is otherwise involved in education? As a teacher or... Okay. Welcome. A couple of months ago, I was at a seminar which was started off by Professor Wim Overmars from the Utrecht University. And he said something about nowadays students learn about 90% of what they learn outside schools. And only 10% of what they know and what they pick up in information they still learn in schools. Now, in the past months, we've had a lot of discussion in the Netherlands about the changes we've seen in the past years in the educational system, and with parliamentary committees doing investigations in what went wrong. And now we're looking at virtual worlds. We are looking at virtual worlds. We've sat down a couple of months ago, and we also thought, well, maybe what can we do with virtual worlds in education? That was the basic premises in which we started thinking and discussing, and it ran out of hand quite fast, and so here we are now, after just a month of discussing. First of all, I'd like to put in a few comments for discussion. We'll be kicking off close to 4 o'clock with our first presentation, and Robert will introduce the speaker and the presentation. But first, I'd like you to give a few comments, a few thoughts on what do you think that virtual worlds can contribute to education. What would be the challenges that education has in a changing society? Education has more or less stayed the same. The means we use in education, books and classrooms and stuff like that, pretty much since the early 20th century, Mammoetwet, whatever, we still use books and we still use classrooms, while everything around us is changing. We got new media, we got internet, we got, and we try to incorporate that into our classrooms. But what I've seen from the days that I was still teaching, I found that a lot of colleagues of mine were having a lot of difficulty in letting go books and pre-formatted lessons and try to incorporate modern technology, on-the-fly technology to enhance their learning experiences. So what are your opinions about how education should face this new technology, mass multimedia technology in general, and what in particular are the chances for virtual worlds to model, to visualize the enormous amount of information we have to digest nowadays? Because nowadays we have about an average week of New York Times worth of information is more information than somebody had in his whole lifetime 100 years ago. And the information we're producing is growing day by day, and soon we're at the point now that we've produced more information in the last year than we did in the 5,000 years before. So at one point in time, we're going to see information overload. We just can't handle the amount of information. The information we receive in our first year of college will be outdated by the time we are in our fourth year. So everything you've learned in the past years is obsolete next year. So how can you use virtual worlds to visualize, model information, principles in education, so we'll be ready for the next 50, 100 years of education? Okay, this one works too? Okay. What I'm going to do is hand out a microphone to everyone who wants to comment. What do you think of education and the things I said before? Who wants to respond?
Hi, my name is Anders Bauer. I have a background in artificial intelligence from the UVA, the University of Amsterdam, and applying this to education. You sounded to me a little negative about traditional education, but I think what people learn in schools forms the building blocks for them to gather more information in their later years. For example, language. So, and I think that also applies to the stuff they learn in college maybe, or university. I don't think that, even if it becomes outdated, I think it's still valuable. And we just need ways to increase the speed at which people can learn.
Okay. Your basic idea is that education provides the building blocks on which you can build in a later stadium, and that maybe we should increase the speed in which we are learning. I agree to a certain extent, because we need to be taught the basic principles in education, and we have to build on that in the rest of our life. But as you said, maybe we have to speed up. There's a lot of information that youngsters have to digest nowadays, and could virtual worlds help in visualizing this to be able to provide that platform which would increase the speed of learning? Can you use virtual worlds as a means to get to the core of whatever it is you're teaching, so that people understand it easier? For instance, if you talk about language, you can teach language in a classroom. You can use textbooks, you can use grammar books, but you can also go out into Second Life and start a discussion in live interaction. If you talk about mathematics, you can draw diagrams, or you can build them. And if your pupils build triangles, whatever, would they, because they are doing it and because they are seeing it, would they understand the basic principles faster or not? And of course, education is such a broad range. With a little creativity, you can probably think of 100 ideas that would help, and on the other hand, think of 100 things in which case it might be difficult to visualize. Because I agree, there will certainly be things that will require plain old textbook reading in some cases. Anyone else?
Thank you. My name is Steven Poelsma. I'm from Knoet. It's a company in Den Haag, Scheveningen. I have a question about learning on virtual worlds. You making examples for books, for language, for all kind of things, but that is what you can do. But I'm more wondering about the teachers, because they need to understand virtual worlds, and I think, especially here in the Netherlands, that the teachers don't understand the way they can use tools like virtual worlds.
We have teachers in the room. Would you like to comment?
It depends on which schools you're in, I think. But on the average, I think you can say that the experience of teachers in higher education, HBO, is the experience with new media is not so high, not so great. But then they are not taught in the classes that teach them how to teach how new media can be used. So it's also a question of what the school wants with the teachers.
Yes.
A bigger plan. But there was one other thing that I would like to comment on. You're talking about the speed of learning. And I think that we have to add the depth of learning, because I don't know what to expect from speed of learning.
Okay. So for those who didn't get it, first of all, you said at the higher education, the universities of applied sciences, in general, there isn't too much attention for virtual worlds yet, or new technology in general. And the second thing you said is that it is important there to add depth to education. It's not about learning faster. What I meant to say is that the amount of information we have to process is increasing day by day, and that certain topics are hard to explain to students, like how does a genome work? What is a genome DNA structure? And you can draw diagrams, but you can also show them. Is visualizing information. 80% of our cognitive skills is visually oriented. So would visualizing it, modeling it in a 3D environment, would that be helpful to have students get a faster comprehension of the topics they're dealing with? So that is what I meant with speed, the speed of learning, or so how fast can you get to the core of the topic you're teaching? Secondly, we're going to wrap up soon for the first speaker. As for the attention that there is in educational Holland for virtual worlds, I think what I'm seeing is that it's absolutely increasing, especially at university level. Lots of initiatives are coming forth right now, and also in universities of applied sciences. I know a couple of hogescholen. I work at Sogeti, Society Nederland, or for our Americans, it's Sogeti. We work with a company in Delft in which we have a number of students involved, stagiaires from the Hogeschool of Rotterdam and Windesheim in Zwolle, and we see a lot of attention throughout the Netherlands in virtual worlds and other technology. Jeroen had a last remark, I think, before we move on to our first speaker.
I have a question from Second Life. Mabel Broom wonders if...
a little bit harder.
Mabel Broom from Second Life wonders if there will be university classes completely in Second Life or in virtual worlds. What's your thoughts on that?
Maybe it's something for you to answer. I think the University of Amsterdam is doing classes in Second Life. Do you know something about that? No, the one in front of you. Okay. Are there teachers here who use Second Life in teaching?
I do on the master's studies for editorial design at the HKU, Art Academy in Utrecht. But that, of course, is a kind of practice-based teaching. It's what we do is there is an assignment and people make things and then talk about it. So there's a direct relation between what is being studied and how we use that in Second Life. It's a kind of rapid prototyping of designs.
Yeah, I know that happens a lot worldwide as well. We have contacts with Ohio University Without Boundaries, so not the Ohio State University, of which will fill in one of the presentations, but the other university from Ohio, and they're doing a lot with education in Second Life as well. So that's it for now. At the end and maybe in between, we will have time for some more discussion. I'm going to hand over to Robert Shepard now.